Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to the show, Indestructible Souls, the podcast for mental wellness for African American men and boys. I want to thank you guys for your continued support. It is August 1st, and we are going to continue our three-part series on professional athletes or athletics and mental health. But before we get there, I want to make sure that you know how to find me. Not only do I run this podcast and I'm a host of Indestructible Souls, I'm also the primary therapist for Beauregard Therapy. You can check me out on Instagram. You can check me out on Facebook. And you can find my profile on Psychology Today. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to continue our series on athletics and mental health with my special co-host that I'm going to bring on soon. And this seems to be perfect timing with the Olympics in place. And we've been talking about athletes, high school, school-age athletes, and now we're going to talk about the professional level, but also just talk about general mental health when it comes to athletics. And as you know, with the Olympics going on, our hero Simone Biles had decided to step out or to sit out some of her events, and we're going to talk about that. We're going to break that down because I think this situation it encompasses everything that we've been talking about. So I'm going to introduce the co-host and have him come on, which is Jerome Washington. He is the proprietor of JW Therapy Solutions out of Florida. Go ahead and introduce yourself real quick.
Good evening, everyone. I am Jerome Washington, as Mr. Beauregard stated. Thanks for having me on the show again. I'm excited to be able to address what we are going to talk about today. Looking forward to it.
All right, so let's get right to it. So just to kind of recap real quick, and then we'll get into, I really want to dive into this Simone Biles situation. But to recap, we talked about in our first series how, athletics, especially for young people, can be a tool to build character, to build self-esteem, to build confidence.
Right.
But at the same time, it could be also can affect someone's mental health, and it can affect their confidence and self-esteem as a young person. And how if we put too much pressure on people, how it affects their mental health. And so last week or a couple of weeks ago, I talked about the student athlete. The athlete that, whether it's in middle school, high school, college, all of the pressures that are put on student athletes, not only to perform athletically, but also to perform academically, and all the pressures and all the things that come up with it. We remember 25% of athletes report, and this is just reported, that they experience some type of depression or anxiety. However, only 10% of that 25% seeks help. So now here we are with the Olympics, and we have one of our national heroes with their best gymnast of her events at the Olympics. And there's been so much talk on each side. So Jerome, I want to talk about overall mental health at this level, right? And how does mental health at this level affect professional athletes? But we're talking about world-class athletes. And have you worked with any athletes at this level, and from a mental health standpoint?
Yes, I have. Actually, I've worked with professional athletes currently, and in at this level, the stress that these people go through mentally, in terms of preparation and in terms of training, in terms of just performance, is immense. And it's not just it's not just on the gymnastics floor. It's not just in the basketball arena. It's not just on the football field. It's in preparation on those and in those arenas, but it's also today a lot more away from the events, just as much as it is where the events take place. I mean, people have a lot more access to these athletes, way more than they ever did, years ago. And these athletes have access to the individuals that seek them and follow them at the same time. But the media has such a huge role to play in some of these stressors that these athletes have to live up to greater standards than they did in the past. So it's the stress on them is immense.
So just to give people context, when you work with professional athletes, what are some of the things and what are some of the concerns that they present with?
Well, I mean, the concerns range. I mean, the range is wide. I mean, it ranges all the way from them actually, you wouldn't know it, but because you see them play on TV or, in the Olympics or something, but a lot of them sometimes end up second guessing their own talents. They actually end up second guessing their own ability to do what they're actually currently training to do. Like you bring up Simone Biles for an example. I mean, she trains for years to be able to go somewhere for what, a month, and perform for a number of days, and to be perfect. So imagine what she has to go through all that time, through all these different competitions, and then get to that stage, and you can't make a mistake.
Right.
You have to rule out the idea of the fact that you're actually human. You have to rule out the fact that you can't make a mistake. You have to be on point at all times and get great scores.
Right.
So a lot of them, like I said, they second guess their talents, they second guess their preparation. They try to get themselves in a mindset of, I'm going to be able to do this. I'm the greatest at this, because if it doesn't go the way they need it to go, they have to have something to fall back to. And that's the one thing they lack, and that's why they end up coming into counseling.
Okay, so let's get into this. I really want to delve into this Simone Biles. I hope I'm saying her name correctly.
Okay.
I really want to delve into this. And the reason being is I think a lot of us who are sports fans may have mixed feelings. But I'm particularly upset about the backlash she's getting from certain people and certain groups of people, and really trying to tarnish her legacy. So my first question is, how do you feel about her stepping down from her event?
I have personally, I have mixed feelings about it, because, and the reason I say that is because I would just like to see her perform. I mean, outside of her stepping down, I just wanted to see her perform. I mean, anytime you have an individual who has to actually have a traditional scale that's been used for years throughout the Olympics, you had to have it adjusted, and not just only adjusted, but adjusted just to apply to you.
Right.
But it doesn't apply to anybody else. It just applies to you.
Because
that should speak volumes.
Right. But didn't they grade throughout the year, last year or so, didn't they grade one of her performances at a higher standard,
Yes.
because the other people couldn't match?
Yes.
Because the other people couldn't perform that technique?
Well, they ended up grading her at a high, yes.
The level of difficulty.
Yeah.
So not only does she have to be perfect to everybody else, they raised the bar for her to be perfect.
Yeah, she raised the bar for the sport and the practice itself, but she also raised the bar, when you look at it, in their eyes, for herself, because she developed moves that only she could do, that she coined herself. So they were actually raising the bar, one, but two, they raised the bar to grade her on her own exercise that they had never seen before. So how are you really going to gauge whether she did it right or wrong when you've never seen her exercise?
And how is that fair?
Well, fair is a whole nother conversation. That's that's a whole nother conversation. What I'm saying is, like I said, I would have liked to have just seen her perform, but I can see where the backlash is coming from, because she did it from a standpoint of nothing tangible. I've seen other things when there was a young lady years ago, and excuse me, I can't remember her name, but she hurt her foot, her ankle, and she ended up, I believe, breaking it when Bella Caroli was her coach. But she finished her exercise, and they ended up giving her a great score. She won gold medals. But hers is a tangible issue. It's an ankle. I think part of the backlash for this is because hers is mental health. This is not
So,
something you can see.
so mental health's not tangible, or at least the way
Well,
you see it.
the way people see it, it's not tangible. It can come out in a tangible way, but you can't. When a person says, "I'm having a mental health day," "I'm having a bad day because this or that," you can't take an X-ray of it. You can't tape it up. You can't put a cast on it. You
Right.
can't get back in the game for it.
So we got we in this country we got to wait for the breakdown. We got to wait for the mental breakdown. We got to wait for the downfall. We got to wait for the addiction or the attempted suicide for people to say, "Oh, there's a mental health issue."
Okay, well, that's you said a great point, because I was going to conclude with this. I think part of the issue with the Simone Biles issue also is we're in a me society these days. Self gratification is key. So in other words, you're going over there to represent me. You're going to represent us. It's always been that way. But when she did this, it came out as, well, you're letting us down. You should be representing us. Well, listen, if she feels that she's not up to par to do her exercise, her skill set, then that's for her to decide. That's not for everybody else to decide. And I think you need to let her do that, because she's the best at what she does. If she tells you she doesn't feel well, then she doesn't feel well. But I think since it's not tangible, like I said, and you can't view it, people are saying, well, she bowed out or she's weak. You know, I saw a picture of her with a whole bunch of gold medals around her neck. And
She's
I said,
already proven to be the best of all time.
correct. She's proven to be whatever it is, but she's not doing what you want her to do. And I take testimony that, and I say, you know what? It takes a lot of courage for somebody like her to stand up and say, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, but I'm not going to do what I'm going to do for you. I'm going to do what I'm going to do for me.
Even on an international level.
On a highly international level.
Right. So here's just like all fans. Yes, we want to see this star go to another Olympics and win all the gold and all those things. And obviously, for me and you being therapists, we understand the strains of mental health, especially on athletes. We've already stated in past shows that people see athletes, especially world-class athletes and professional athletes, as human, or inhuman or superhuman. And understanding that, yes, and I don't think people understand the hours and hours and hours and days of training that goes to be even bad. Like to just be on that stage, and people we may say that are sorry or not as good, they go into thousands of hours of training just to be second, third, fourth, and fifth. Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So the problem that I have is, for one, if she's saying my mental health, which means I cannot perform at the level that I want to, but more importantly, this is too much mentally, I think she should have that right. What upset me is I listened to some right-wing radio personalities and how they begin to trash this woman, talk that she's a national disgrace and she's a quitter and she's all of these things. The athlete in me says, first of all, don't criticize me for something that you can't do. So not only can you not do what I do, but so therefore don't criticize me. But here we are from a political standpoint. Now I represent you in terms of the USA, but here in this country, I don't get the same representation.
Right.
And so that's where my mind went, is as long, and it was funny because the same person said, hey, she handed the gold medal to Russia, right? How dare you hand the gold medal to Russia? But y'all didn't care when Trump handed over the country to Russia. All right, I digress.
Well, that's again we're highly enmeshed in in a me self gratified society at this point. People want their needs met when they want their needs met, how they want their needs met. And you can say she handed over the medals to Russia, but here's the thing: she's on a team.
Right.
So if
Rest
you
of
never
the
thought she was the greatest, then let her step aside and let the rest of the team come up and do the best they can and go from
win.
there.
Right. They won the silver with the league. But here's the
Yeah.
other thing. This takes me back to shut up and dribble. And I don't care about your mental health. You can go crazy. You can break down your body for my gratification. And then once you're done and once you're used up, or you go crazy, I'm going to talk about you when you go crazy.
Yeah.
But for now, you need to give me what I want. This goes back to the step it fetching for me. This goes back to the shut up and dribble. This,
Yeah.
this. So from a not only from a professional athlete standpoint, from a black athlete standpoint, I'm okay as long as I'm performing for you. But if I step aside because I'm saying my mind's not right, now I'm no
You have,
good to.
you have a problem with it. Well, yeah. I mean, when you really look at athletics, it's a lot of people see it as entertainment.
Right.
It's so if you don't entertain me, then I'm unhappy. But I think a lot of people have forgotten that in my opinion, the greatest basketball player to play, uh, in terms of dominating and doing whatever he wanted to do, which is Michael Jordan. He actually did the same thing.
When he
He
went to go play,
he said he says I right now my head's not in it. I need to take a break, and he stepped away.
right. When he went to go play baseball, he was,
But
it's about
if you recall, they treated it the same way.
right. There's my point. Right. He did the exact same thing, and instead
Correct.
he went to go play baseball, came back, won it again. But you're absolutely correct.
Mm-hmm.
And so for people, especially professional athletes or world class athletes, where people believe that they do not have the right to take care of their mental health, their emotional health, just perform for me for my gratification, is tragic.
I know I have to agree with you. But again, it's about self gratification and not her own, but in a sense, it is her own. She's self gratifying herself, saying, "Look, if my head's not in it, and I go to do an exercise where I'm gonna come off the balance beam or something like that, and my head's not in it, and I mess around and hurt myself."
She could kill herself.
I mean, because they're not running like 5 miles an hour down the mat to go jump off the pommel and do the horse routine. That's not. They're sprinting. This is an all-out sprint. If she don't have her feet in the right place, her hands in the right place, and she runs into that thing, she can get hurt. So when the best in the world tells you, don't turn right, I think you should listen to him. When the best in the world tells you, I'm not ready to perform. Let me see about the exercises tomorrow, but this particular day, I'm not ready. I think you should be able to say, yeah, you let me know. If you feel like you can go and do it, do it. If you don't feel like you can do it, we have a whole other team. We have a team.
Right.
So, but if you really look at it, they're giving her a lot of respect. I know it doesn't look that way, but they're giving her a lot of respect. They're saying if you don't jump out here and do this, we're gonna go down, even though we have a team. So you're basically telling her what she's saying is right. She says she is the best. She's holding all those medals. No one's beat her in forever. She's coined her own moves and her own routines to where you have to grade her on herself. You don't grade her against the normal population. You grade her on herself.
She gets her own grade card.
So you're actually if you don't even if you don't like her, you're actually giving her a lot of respect when you're saying, hey, you need to come back and represent us, not the other people. So that means you're not saying the other people on her team is as good as her.
But what about athletes, professional athletes in general? This country is so narrow-minded or self-centered, whatever you want to call it. They think that because you're on TV, we give you $1 million, nothing should be wrong with you.
Well, I think you said it earlier. People tend to see professional athletes, and at the highest level, they see them as inhuman. They see them as superpowered human beings. I mean, their bodies shouldn't break down. Their bodies can't break down. Well, sorry to tell you, they're actually human. Not only away from physical, they break their arms and legs and knees and Achilles, all the way down to they actually have mental times where they don't feel like they can perform, or they run into mental health issues just like everybody else.
Right. And so for this situation with Simone, we saw the tennis player, and then we now have what's the track star name who couldn't even go because she smoked the marijuana or took the CBDs.
Oh,
I
I
don't
forget her
remember.
name.
I
Yeah,
don't remember.
she couldn't come either. I don't remember her name. I know we call her name.
And so she had a tragedy in the family,
Mm-hmm.
and decided, you know what, to calm my nerves, I think she took CBDs or she smoked something. Now all of a sudden, a drug that's acceptable, if you want to call it a drug, that's acceptable, and I get the Olympic rules, but at the same time, she decided to take care of her mental health.
Well, I mean, if you also dig into that story a little bit more, you'll find that she actually was supposed to be taking a test and they had to come to her and test her and get her results. She happened to be sleeping.
Right.
And unable to take the test and give the results. So if you do not take the test and give them results, it's a fail.
Right.
So there's some out there a little bit more, there's some information out there more or less like, did she actually still fail, or did she just not take the test y'all want her to take? And since she didn't answer the door for you to come in, you failed her. Because it looks really good just to say she flat out failed because she started off with a marijuana issue in the first place.
Right. And so here's why I'm taking this up, especially for the Black community, because outside of a few sports, we represent a large population, obviously in basketball, football, and obviously in track and field and so forth. And so much of our community rely on sports for that leg up to advance.
Right.
Right? Whether it's through education,
Mm.
school, so forth and so on. And me and you have even said athletics is important to personal development.
Yes,
Right?
it is. Very much so.
But for some, and here's the thing, I don't know if it's the same for white athletes. I really don't, because the fact of the matter is they don't get the same scrutiny, or it doesn't seem to be as visible when we talk about the same. Obviously you got Pete Rose, who was banned, but then you had other athletes that were, especially with baseball, that were caught up in the whole steroid thing. But guess
Right.
what? Their legacies weren't tarnished. They didn't lose much money. They were able to come back from that. Some of them may only get an asterisk next to their name in the Hall of Fame if they make it, right?
Right.
So it even wasn't, they actually cheated, but it doesn't seem to be the same when somebody says, you know what? Because guess what? If my mental health is messed up, I could cheat. I could go take something
Yeah.
that's going to help me feel better and then still perform. But better yet, you know what? I'd rather sit this one out. And so the reason why to me this is so important is because when we as Black people rise to a certain level, somehow we still lose our humanity. That's how I see it.
I completely agree with you on that, and I'll concur with this because it goes back to her scoring. She raised the bar so high and developed routines and moves that only she could do. So she raised the bar, and
Right.
she lost her humanity because you couldn't grade her like the other human beings. You had to grade her like her.
Right.
So you made her a special human being on your path, on your terms. She's just as good as she's just as much as human anyone else in that team. She's just better at what she does. Now, we're not going to get into why she's better for training purposes or what have you, but that comes into play. And I think I think people need to give her, you can look at it however you want to, but I think you need to just give athletes themselves the platform to just be athletes, but be human athletes. Stop looking at them as if they, I know they can do a lot of things, run faster than everybody else, jump higher than everybody, hit harder than everybody else. I get it. But they're still human. And one thing that I did see over this last week that was different, but I really appreciated it. Michael Phelps, who's a Olympic star, obviously very decorated swimmer, very decorated swimmer. He actually came out in support of it. Now, his issue with everything didn't come out till later, and They talked about it a little bit, but I don't think he was ridden as much about it because he actually made it through the Olympics. But I was very happy with the fact that he came out and supported her and said, "Look, if she feels like she needs to do that, then I applaud her."
Right.
And he went on to say the kind of stress that these people go through. I mean, you got to look at it. NBA players, they play 82 games. And then they have the summer off, and then they go to play a little summer pro-am or whatever. And the baseball players have a long season, and they have time off. Football players play their games, and they have time off. These people have to constantly train, and then they go through competitions, and then they train, and competitions, and they train, and then they go through actual competitions, which prepare them to be able to be prepared to be able to try out for the Olympic trials, and then go to the Olympics. And through all this, they have to continually get better and better and better and better and perfect.
And have to continue to perform at a higher level.
Correct.
Under constant scrutiny.
Correct.
Under constant judgment.
Correct.
And like I said before, their human value is placed on their athletic ability, which is unfair.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And when you talk about the NFL, for those who have never played football at a high level, 17 games is too much. Now, some would disagree, but when you talk about 17 regular season games plus another 4 playoff games, and you're at that level,
well,
and people, and follow me on this. Follow me on this.
I'm with you. I'm with you.
And I'm not on no campaign to shorten the season, but you're not even talking about the preseason games that they don't get paid for.
Well, if I can add to that, you're talking about, I hear you. You're talking about 17 games and then playoff in terms of if you continue to win.
True.
You played. So let's look at this in terms of preparation, and let's look at this in terms of the culmination of the beating and the pounding of the force that you take on Sundays.
Right.
And if you don't take it on Sunday, you take it on Monday. So if you take it on, they play that hard on Sundays. They don't really do much on Monday because they're recouping. Monday and Tuesdays are recoup days. Wednesdays, they get back into it. Thursdays, they go back to hitting. Friday, they're doing the thing. Saturdays, they just chill back because they got to take care of their bodies.
Right.
They got to take care of their bodies. And you scrutinize them when you hear, oh, so-and-so got a leg contusion. Oh, come on, he can suck it up. He's on my fantasy team. He's on your fantasy team for your gratification. That man or woman is playing this game for their life.
Not to mention, I got to worry about getting hurt and losing my spot, then losing my livelihood, and so forth and so on. Now, so I played at the college level, didn't play at the professional level. But you talk, even going back to high school, you remember this. Me and Darren, 6 a.m, was in the gym every day, just to make it through high school. In the gym 6 a.m, school, practice, back in the gym because we wanted to make it to college.
And you're being graded on whether you're good enough to go to college. So you can't even take a morning off because you're trying to go to college and get an education and play.
Right. They gave us access to the gym when nobody else was there, just so we can just try to make it to college. Now you talk about Monday in college. You talk about the 2-a-days, right?
Yeah.
Wearing your body, and then you get beat up during the game. And like you said, then Sunday is a recoup day. Monday is a recoup day. And here's the thing: I was taught. I played at a junior All-American football level with a broken tailbone because we were taught you don't if you how does it say, if you're hurt you play, if you're injured then you sit down.
That's right.
So when you think about that, and then the mentality, and you're tearing your body down. I was lucky to make it out of the game with arthritis in this finger that was broken and dislocated at the same time. That was my most major injury. I was one of the lucky ones. You're not talking about how people's bodies are broken down. So now, think about it. And follow me on this. Most of us working through our 50s and 60s, their value is to their 30s.
And their 50s and 60s are tough. They're on so much pain medication and mental health medication, so they can just sleep. So they can just have an appetite. Here's something for you. I have a patient who was a Navy SEAL, and he told me through the training they asked him they go through some of the toughest training, the most rigorous training around, bar none. And he said that the instructor told him this: "Are you hurt or are you injured?" He said, "If you're hurt, keep going.
Right.
If you're injured, then you need to step out."
Right.
And I think that all the way back to the Simone Biles, that's why I said you can't see this in a physical form. It's not a broken finger, like you said, dislocated. This is something where this lady's saying, listen, I didn't tell you I wasn't the best. I'm just not where I know I need to be because I'm the best telling you this. I'm not where I need to be as my normal best self mentally.
Right.
So I'm going to step back and she said this, let my teammates take this over. Just like professional football players, when they know they're not ready to play a game, they're gonna let somebody know, but they're gonna get out there and try to play it. But then when they don't do well, they're all over Sports Center. As well, look at him, he gets paid this, he gets paid that. He just signed to a contract, and he look at this fumble. Oh my gosh, he fumbled the ball. Listen, this running back, understand something, is out of the top 2% in the world in college to make it to the pros, and he's got to be the top 1% on his team. He's going up against a linebacker or a running back or a corner who's at the best at their position. If he fumbles the ball or goes down, please understand he didn't get hit by a 9th stringer or a 4th stringer or a 2nd stringer. He got hit by a guy who's the best at his job.
Right.
That's it.
We haven't even. I mean, in football, we could go here, but we haven't even gotten into the concussions and all that stuff, and playing with brain damage and all that stuff. So, I mean, that's another 5 series.
Yeah, that's 3 or 4 more shows. But I think with this topic, I think the real thing is when it comes to mental health and athletes, I think the athletes, hopefully more so, not to continue with the Simone Biles story, but I hope most of them continue to look at really taking care of their own mental health, not regarding the scrutiny of what they're going to get. I don't mean the DNPs in basketball, like what they call it, loading or not playing this game. I mean, like, okay, fine, you don't think I should. I'm not ready. And if it's from a mental standpoint, I'm not ready. If it's from a physical standpoint, I'm not ready. If you want to go out there and put your body through it, go ahead. People have always done that. But if you feel like you want to step back and say, listen, I'm not quitting. I didn't drop out. I didn't quit the team. I'm just not ready. I need to get myself more mentally prepared to be able to do so. Thank you.
Right.
And I think this society, like I said, it's such a me-driven self-gratification society. Everybody thinks that you need to perform for them. These people don't understand that these athletes are performing for themselves.
Right.
Yes, they do have fans, and I'm sure they love all their fans, but they're performing for you, but they're the ones performing. So please allow them the ability and the legality to perform and know when not to perform.
Right. And so here's the thing, and we're going to wrap. We're going to land this plane real soon. The thing is, when we talk about mental health and athletics, especially for those who are currently in college, if you're just starting out high school, whatever it may be, at least what I'm suggesting, and I'm pretty sure Jerome will agree with me, is yes, academics is important.
Huge.
Athletics is important. All of those things. But here's the thing, your body cannot perform if your mind isn't right. Not only that, there is so much outside of the sport that you have to take care of your mental health. So a couple of things that I want to suggest is for athletes, and I really don't care which level that you're at, if you're going to take it serious, and I want you to chime in on this. If you're going to take it serious, there always has to be balance. The specific thing that I'm going to suggest is things like meditation.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say, whatever type of meditation you do, but I'm going to say have another, not another sport, but another hobby that takes you away for the moment. And here's what I mean by this: play
like an
football,
outlet.
just another outlet.
Mm-hmm.
Just another outlet. Okay, I'm burnt out with sports right now. Not burnt out, but I'm overwhelmed right now. I got life going on. Let me have something else that's not destructive, and I'm not talking drugs, alcohol, anything like that. If it's walks on the beach, if it's riding a bicycle, if it's, whatever else it may be, having another outlet to get you balanced. And whatever your values are that helps keep you grounded, hold on to that. You have to. What would you add to that?
I think you hit it on the head. I think what I would tell young athletes and even professional athletes that retreat, I say, listen, as you're gearing up for this as a young athlete, really research and look into what you're going into. Know what you're signing up for, so to speak. And really look at all the parameters. You're going to play a sport. What's it going to take to train? What's it going to take appetite wise? What's it going to take mentally? What's it going to take educationally? Okay. In lieu of that, again, take into account social media. Everybody pubs themselves and promotes themselves on social media, but understand you're putting yourself out there for the ridicule of everybody. Nobody has to like you. In fact, it's really cool today to take shots at you, just as well as it's cool today to like you. I'm not saying don't play because of this. I'm saying research and really look into what you're signing up for. And I agree with you 100%. If you're going to get into a sport and after it's over, have yourself another outlet. If it's another sport, do it. If it's mental, if it's psychotherapy, do it. I do sports psychology. If it's seeing a sports psychologist, do it. That doesn't mean you have a mental health issue. What mental health and sports have in common, and the outlet you're talking about, is people go see a therapist because they want to talk about things or some things because they might be issues. Right. At the same time, there are some people who go to counseling just to have another person to talk to. Right. It doesn't have to be a mental illness. So if you're playing a sport, I'm really big on this. Get you a mentor. Okay? And there's two great types. Get you a mentor who played your sport, but get you a mentor of somebody who was great in another sport. So they can help you see things a little bit differently than how you've been seeing them for the last 6, 7, 8, 9 months playing your sport.
Right.
And you'll have somebody to talk to, somebody to guide you down the right path. Somebody say, hey, listen, you're right where you need to be. Somebody that say, hey, listen, why don't you take a step back and go do something else for a little bit? You're great at this. You're great at this. Take a couple of weeks off. Take a month off. Go play golf since you're a basketball player. Go play golf since you're a football player. Or go play basketball since you're a baseball player. Take your mind and your body somewhere else for a little bit, break the monotony, and then come back. And that can be a break for you to be able to refocus and regain and focus back in on what you need to be doing. And for the younger people, they have this problem ongoing because they have to deal with education. Some of them go through summer school all the way through. Some of them in college, some of them in high school. They got tests and prep tests and grades and papers, and they want to get degrees and get a second degree. That's a whole nother stressor on top of your sport. Right. Find yourself, like you said, find yourself another outlet. Like I said, I'm really big on use a mentor in your sport, in another sport. Get yourself a therapist, get a family member who's been there. Just have somebody else to bounce your life off of. Not your sport, not your mental health. Just bounce life off of. Because a lot of people who play these sports, they end up really feeling unbalanced in life. It's not the sport.
Right.
You hear college kids go through it. It's not their classes. They just feel like they don't fit. And they don't really know what that means, but they'll tell you that. You know what I'm saying? So that's my take on that. I think everybody should do that, but athletes for sure.
Right. I just remember when I played in New Mexico at New Mexico State, I was so unhappy. There
you go.
I still performed well, but nowhere near what I would just.
Did you even know why? Could you really put your finger on it?
At the time, for one, I hated where I was at. I did not like the city. I did not feel like I fit in at all. And I know the coaches didn't care. So I didn't want to play there. And I was there 1 year and I was out. But when you talk about a depression, my routine was go to class, go to practice, sit in front of the TV to do it all over again.
Now, did you enjoy what you were doing?
Not at all.
So you hear a lot of athletes talking about I lost the love for the game.
I did not enjoy playing football there at all.
There you go.
It was miserable.
There you go.
Miserable. But anyways, I digress. So, any final words before we end this show and end this series, Mr. Jerome?
No, the only thing I do have to say is it's been my pleasure to do this series. I wish we didn't end it because I think we still have some additional topics we could throw into it, but
We can
maybe
come
we will, maybe
back.
we won't. But
No, maybe
yeah,
we
maybe,
around sports and athletics. We could come and do some more specific topics
yeah,
next week. Next week, I want you to join, and it's going to be a very serious topic. I do, and I think I'm gonna say I'm coining this term:
okay,
men- mental molestation. That's what we're going to talk about next
wow,
week.
okay,
And right, I'm
okay,
glad you had that look. And so join me next week to find out what mental molestation is. And you can already decipher when I'm talking about with molestation. And I'm not before we get to the physical, I'm going to talk about and we're going to talk about how that starts mentally before anything else. Very important topic. You want to grab your children. You want to be able to grab all the folks in the family that work with children and work with young kids. And when we talk about mental molestation, it's going to be very educational, very informative, and it's probably going to save lives. So once again, thank you, Mr. Jerome.
my pleasure,
This,
my pleasure.
this has been Indestructible Souls. And we are completing our current series on athletics and mental health. And we're going to be back next week with something very, very important. And so, once again, this has been Indestructible Soul. Don't forget, you can check me out at Beauregard Therapy and enjoy your Sunday. And we're out.